Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Groover. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Groover, and I am thrilled to introduce another guest, a powerhouse, an amazing woman. We are so thrilled to have Natasha Mitchell on the show. Welcome, Natasha. Woo-hoo.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Oh, of course. So why don't you tell our listeners, our viewers, a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you contribute to the world, all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Natasha, and I'm actually a business coach and consultant, and I specialize in helping creative entrepreneurs actually scale their business with ease. So I really help people to take the complexity out of their business, to create a business that is very much aligned with, it sounds a bit cliche, but with their dream life. So really help them design the business models, the processes, the systems, where they spend their time so that they're enjoying what they do and they can make money doing what they do as well.
Well, so when you use the word creatives, just maybe go into a little bit more of that just to make sure. I think I kind of know what you're talking about there, but just want to make sure what kind of creatives you actually serve then too.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Jason. So I work with a lot of my clients are in the event industry, as it turns out. I mean, they're not only event industry people, but I work with a lot of, for example, event planners, designers, photographers, videographers, graphic designers. So they're people that when I say creative, and like some of my clients are art gallery owners and online art gallery owners, or they produce, a specific, like a spiritual intention card. So they're people. It's always interesting. I think it's great to understand the distinction. For me, creative, these people are artistic, but they're very hands-on with their craft. So they're not just offering an information product like, a lot of coaches do. They're really creating something in the world, and there's a physical output of what they create.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those people, they're really, really good at whatever their art is, but they have no idea usually how to run a business. So that's where it's like, I love business coaches that are helping creatives because, I love art in general, and so it's nice for people to actually be able to make a living from it, because there's the old joke kind of a thing, the artist actually doesn't make any money until after they're dead.
Right.
And very few, like Pablo Picasso did, but, most of the people, it's like their paintings are worth multi-million dollars now, and they were, poor and starving as an artist. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting what I find with a lot of my clients who are creative. I think it's not even necessarily that they don't know how to run a business. I think it's how they run a business is just very different than what we would traditionally think about business. So as an artist and a creative, they're more, I would say, more abstract thinker. So I could say, give me a summer vibe theme. And they would know what that looks like, right? They already have that picture in their mind. So they can kind of take that very tangible, or very specific knowledge and then turn it into sort of this visual piece. So maybe if I kind of compared it to this, like I'm very good with a written word, but I'm not necessarily good with a visual. So they're very good with visuals and maybe not so much the tangible. And how that translates, I think, why they sometimes struggle with running a business is because they don't necessarily think in a very linear pattern.
Right.
And traditionally how businesses are set up are in these very linear patterns and say you have to do step 1, 2, 3, 4. Whereas they are very good at saying, I can do step 1, 7, 3, 2. And I know, because they're just an abstract way of thinking, I know how all of those pieces are going to look when it's number 10 finished.
Right. Well, and that's actually what I was going to say is I think it's maybe not so much that they don't know how to do it, but business isn't set up for that type of person. It's set up for the accountants, the bankers, the real estate agents, where there's this very clear formula. And for artists, there isn't a clear formula. And for artists, I'm including event planners and designers and photographers. And, if you want to step out of that box of I do something different, you have to come about it from a different way. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. So how did you get to here? What is your background that brought you to this moment?
Yeah, so I come from a very linear corporate background, starting my career as an
Yes,
accountant.
me too. Oh, as an accountant even, huh?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm a CPA in 2 states, but I
Well,
don't
I didn't quite
practice.
get to CPA, but my first job was with Pricewaterhouse as an accountant in
Yeah.
tax. So,
There we go. There we go.
my degree is in commerce and accounting. So I definitely came that
Very linear.
very linear path. And, I continued down that path in those kind of roles, very analytical roles, a lot of technology roles. I was working with IBM and some of the big consulting firms on large scale technology transformation. So, multi-million-dollar projects. My specialty was change management and the training. So really taking that complex technical and then making it easy for people to put into place. So that's my background, which is very down the line. My alter ego, and Kathy, I think you can probably relate to this with your high-flying trapeze. My alter ego was dancing, modeling, playing the piano, love fashion. So all these sort of creative things were in my personal life, I might say. And it was always very, and I would say I'm more of a linear thinker, but I've got this sort of other very creative side. And I always found, as a lot of entrepreneurs I think do, it was really challenging in the corporate world because I couldn't be creative. I couldn't use that creative side, and that's really why I said, okay, enough of that. I need to get in touch with more of that creative side to enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm hearing you say this, and a couple different things popped in. I was a theater major. I was into drama and psychology and philosophy and all these things. My dad said, why don't you go be an accountant? Which was so counterproductive to any urging that and I hate math. Numbers are just terrifying to me. So that just seemed weird. And then I realized it's like, but when I was pursuing my acting career, I went at it in a very linear fashion. I was very thoughtful about what I did, and I had these systems in place, and I had these methods in place. So it's interesting. I guess in some way, I took the creative career, but I went about it in a very linear business-like fashion. So I was just realizing it's like I guess I did kind of meld those two worlds. But for someone that doesn't, for someone that doesn't know how to meld those two worlds, how do you start to guide them into a successful practice if they're sort of out of the box?
Well, one of the tools that I've created is called the simple business method. So, that it's particularly with this challenge in mind. What I've found with creative people, if I try and give people like a 5-step process and say, you have to do this step first, this step first, this step first, they kind of shut down, right? Not even open to listening sometimes, and I understand that. So how I help them is if you can imagine, my model is more of a circle, and we can kind of bring in all of the pieces that they need. So let's say there's 4 different things that they need. Maybe they need a business strategy. Maybe they need some leadership skills. Maybe they need a team. Maybe they need to develop some systems and processes. So I'll sort of take all of the things in that bucket and put them in the circle. And we can grab whatever one they are sort of, this is now where I think the more creative people have more of an emotional or an intuitive connection. They will naturally say, oh, I'm struggling with my leadership skills. I'm like, great, Len, let's go over here and let's work on some of that. Out of that, we'll often see the driver for that is a process, a system or process is not in place. You know, they're not able to delegate well because they don't have a process. I usually already know they don't have a process in place. But if I banged them and said, let's write a process first, they're just shutting down. So I've found for more creative people, this more sort of circular a la carte model where we can bring all of the pieces and we can move more flexibly to wherever they're sort of feeling called to do. It's almost like unstructured structure. That's you know, only how I can best describe it. It offers a lot more flexibility, and they naturally start to see those patterns versus me giving them a very prescriptive way of seeing that pattern.
Yeah, that's a great way of actually thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know, because then it allows them to continue to be creative or feel like they're kind of guiding what it is that they're developing. But yeah, like you said, I mean, if you don't have strategy, leadership, team, and systems, it's going to be pretty hard for you to run a business, right?
Yeah.
So effectively, which one of these do you want to start working on first? It doesn't matter. You got to have all four at the end of the day. Which one do you want to start working on first? And like you said, it usually leads to one of those other discussions anyway.
Yeah, and so a couple of things I often say in my discussions with people is like, creative people don't like to feel like they're stuck in a box, right? So typical systems and structure makes them feel like they're stuck in a box. So if I can help them feel like they're not stuck in a box, they're already going to have a more open mind to hearing that information, and they're not going to be scared. They're not going to feel like, oh, this is all businessy and horrible. They're kind of going to feel like this is fun and creative, and I'm kind of creating my own story. So I think that's very important for creative people. And the second thing I would say, Jason, is because I've worked with a lot of creative people, I have seen this enough times to know it to be true. It actually doesn't matter which order you put this, you know, the systems, the leadership, the strategy, the processes, the team. It honestly doesn't really matter which order they go in. Ultimately, it matters that you have all of those pieces in. I mean, it almost doesn't seem logical, but reality is it doesn't. I don't need a strategy to work on processes. I could work on processes without a strategy. Yeah. You know, I can work on, you know, a business idea without having a team, you know, or I could bring in a team really early and have no strategy, no process. I could bring a team on really early in a business and have the team help guide me on the strategy and the processes and build that. Yeah. So it's a little counterintuitive, but it actually works.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me because this was actually in a dream I had last night as well. When you were writing term papers in school, when you had to write, whether it was a creative thing or you had to turn in a writing assignment, this was my favorite thing ever, until they said, turn in your outline, turn in your note cards, then turn in the paper. They demanded that you had a structure for that paper, whereas I'm like, no, I'm going to write the paper. I'll let you know. And I hated when you had to turn that stuff in ahead of time because I had no idea where the paper was going to go. I wanted to let it unfold in front of me, but they kept you in this turn in your note cards outline thing first. So I could absolutely see how maybe using this kind of thing in a classroom or in learn, because we all learn differently also. And I feel like classrooms, of course, who knows what they look like right now, are so structure based that it leaves the creative people going, I don't know what I'm doing. So either they're acting out or they're rebelling against. And then does that translate into later how we run our business?
Oh, I think so. And I mean, I think fundamentally, if we go back historically, the reason schools have been created in that very institutionalized way was to provide a workforce for a very institutionalized corporate kind of world, right? Yeah. So our whole system is based on that. And I agree. I think a lot of creative people's talents haven't been fostered, or their learning style hasn't been addressed. It's hard in a classroom when you've got 30 or 40 kids in a class to give them each a different way to learn it. But I think our underlying structures of the world have been created for a very institutionalized structure. It'll be very interesting to see what the future holds for us, because the world is opening up in a much more prolific way to entrepreneurial thinking and creativity. And I'm not sure our old structure of education, I think we see that in many discussions, is actually supporting more of that entrepreneurial thinking and lifestyle and all of those pieces.
Well, I think even too, as you're talking about it, you know, even if a business owner isn't so creative, I think some of the prescriptive steps that people kind of say, well, you have to do this before you can do this, before you can do this, that it actually, you know, ends up hurting some of the other people as well, right? Because, you know, again, well, if you're marketing, you probably need to have a website, right? So how many business owners spend 6 months coming up with the perfect website? And it's like, you can actually sell products without having a website. And people are like, what do you mean I can do it? No, I have to have a website. No, you don't have to have a website actually to start generating revenue. So I think even in the business world, like you were talking about with the educational world, it's probably time to start thinking, well, hold it, we don't have to do it that same way. There's these pieces you need to have in place. Which order you go in probably doesn't matter, right? Like you said, your clients, it doesn't matter which one of these they start with first. Ultimately, you just need to have them all in place at some point.
Yeah, I think that's like a really great analogy, Jason. I mean, you see it all the time. And like a lot of my clients, apart from, the, you know, what I would say my traditional creatives, a lot of people do provide online services or online courses. And I can't even tell you how many times, and even someone who's very new in business, you know, the first thing they're saying is like, I need to have a website. I'm like, what do you need a website for? Right? So there is this very linear way of doing that is, I think, hurting entrepreneurs. I think entrepreneurs generally need to be a lot more dynamic and flexible and do the imperfect action. You know, we hear all of that imperfect action, but a big part of my methodology, apart from sort of this linear, you know, it's called the simple business method. So my whole method with people is if they want to do something, say, okay, this would be like the Rolls Royce of it. What's the simplest thing you can do? If we were doing an online launch, what would be the simplest thing? How could we do this without a website, without a sales funnel, without a whatever? It's like, oh, okay, we'll just do a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, put up one slide, do a call to action and direct them to a PayPal link. You know, anyone can do that and you can get it up in like a week versus 6 months of getting a sales funnel set up.
Right. Well, and it's a great way to stall your business because you look at those steps and you go, oh, I don't want to do, and then you end up not doing anything. Thinking that you have to do all of these steps freezes you. And I know people who have spent 6 months learning to code their own website. And, you know, we had an organizational sort of psychology person on who said, are you in the weeds? Or are you doing those things that you're supposed to do? And if you're spending all of this, you know, you're spending a year at the community college learning to do your own website, oh my God, get on Wix and just do it, you know, rather than getting into what is your business. And I remember, you know, trying to put systems in place when I started my massage practice. And I remember driving around with so much laundry in my car because I didn't have a laundry service. And there was one day, and I know Jason, I've told the story, where someone called me for a massage and I couldn't because I didn't have any sheets. And so I found myself at home because they were all dirty. I didn't plan on that. So I found myself at home doing, you know, 300 loads of laundry. And then I thought, what is my business?
Right.
I'm a massage therapist. I'm not a laundress. And it was that afternoon, I went to the local place and I said, what do you charge for bulk laundry? And I set up that system so that I had that stuff in place. Didn't know I needed it till I needed it, kind of thing. So for someone who is stuck in that loop of they feel like they have to do all this other stuff first, how do you communicate that to them of sort of be free and do it your way?
Yeah. You know, the number one exercise I do with people is I do a quick dream life worksheet. So really help them to see what is their ultimate goal? What do they really love doing? What do they not love doing? I mean, like I keep it like super simple. I don't go into a big value, you know, it's just not my specialty. I'm not a big values or mindset person, but there's some basic questions you can ask people. So that's the first thing. As soon as they see that, even like at a really basic level, they can make that connection that, already the parts in their business that they don't enjoy doing or they're not good at and they should be outsourcing, right? So they can already see that picture. You know, I also use a tool called the Business Model Canvas, which is by Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Peigneur. It's a very visual way of looking at a business model. So that tool I find really valuable, again, especially for creators, because they can start seeing their business in a more visual way. And again, it's much easier to see where the break points are in that as well. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because anytime that you can put stuff down visually, it's better. So you've got an accounting background too, right? It's like I used to, you could, in accounting, you could write narratives, which are memos that kind of describe a process. No, I would make my people do flowcharts that use pictures and symbols and arrows, because you could bullshit your way through writing a narrative. You can't bullshit your way through doing a flowchart. You actually have to understand the process. And so it's almost like that's kind of what I equated it to when you're talking about this business model canvas is, look, you're kind of throwing it up there. And especially for creatives, I'm sure this is great because it's like you're painting a picture. Ooh, I love that, right?
Yeah.
And then you're kind of moving the stuff around on it. And it's like, oh, now I can see, right?
Yeah.
And when you kind of get that visual representation of it, or when you go through an exercise like that Dream Life worksheet, it becomes clear to them at that point, right? And then as a coach, you're just kind of guiding them for the ahas that they've already had through the process, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, exactly that. And, you know, I think because of my background in corporate and what I've talked about, you know, like I came learning and development and change management. I have had so much exposure to thousands of different people and you know, the related learning styles. So whenever in the past I've had to create content, I've had to think about people's different learning styles and how are they going to absorb and apply this information. So there's definitely a level of my background of 20 years of doing that makes it easier for me kind of intuitively to spot what a person's natural style is. And I adjust a lot of what I do to those natural styles. And so, for example, if someone is, you know, very adverse to deadlines, I'll look at a way or a technique that we can make that deadline feel less oppressive and that they've got more flexibility in that. You know, if someone, again, we already sort of at the start of this said, you know, the creative people are more visual learners as a general rule. So exactly that. I do lots of things on big flip charts and sticky notes and colored pens. And it seems really little. And Kathy, I think you have a background in psychology and NLP and some of those things. You know those triggers. Jason just said it. I paint a picture. So even the language that you use with people can show they're thinking about whether this is heavy or light or complex or easy.
Yeah. So we have to morph ourselves to our audience? Huh. We should adapt our communication style. This is good stuff, Jason. No.
What a revelation.
We talk about this. We talk about this so often of morphing our message to those people and adjusting our communication style to that which they're receiving. And it is about that customization. And I love that we're having this conversation because so often we're expected to be put in this box, in this click funnel and this way of doing it. And so to sort of give everyone permission to buck that system and say, I'm going to do it my way. I think that's fabulous. And of course, once again, we're on our last couple minutes of time. Jason, any final thoughts for you? And then Natasha will throw it back to you if you have anything to say at the end.
Well, no, I love this idea of the simple business method, you know, because again, I think the simpler that you can make it, the better. And I love that idea too of it doesn't have to be a prescriptive formula. You must do A before you do B, before you do C, right? And I think, you know, it works well, obviously, for creatives, but I think too, as we've all even just kind of talked about ourselves personally, right? Again, I was trained in that very corporate logical process phase, right? But that is not who I am as a person. I am a much more creative person who paints and writes poetry and plays music and does other things as well. And so I think these concepts can help everybody, in being able to kind of move forward and not get stuck. That's a word that you hear a lot of entrepreneurs say, I'm stuck. Well, they're stuck because they're trying to go through a process that they don't want to do. They're spending 6 months on the website. And it's like, like you said, just put up a PayPal link, just put up, one landing page that has a payment link on it. I've heard lots of people, they have, five-figure launches with no website. All they have is an offer on one page or a PayPal link, and, it works. So, quit trying to make things complex, just be simple, figure out what's most important that you can do next and what you want to work on. I love that simple business method, right? That you're using with your clients.
Yeah. And if it helps people have more fun, like, why are we doing business? Fun and freedom are the biggest words I ever hear. So if we're just trying to do exactly the same that was in corporate, and we're trying to make that heavy, inflexible, big machine in our own business, I just say, we'll just stay in corporate and, have a guaranteed paycheck. But if you really want that fun and freedom, then be creative in business, and create a business that works for you, not the other way around.
Yeah. That's good advice for all of us. Great, Natasha. This has been so much fun. Where can people reach you?
So people can reach me at my website, which is inspireanddrive.com, or on Instagram, Inspire and Drive. I'm on Instagram a lot. I share a lot of my tips and tricks and keep connected with people there. And if you join me on my website, there's a free downloadable of the Simple Business Method right there.
Oh, good.
So you can get your hands on that. You can have a look at that, and people can start to make their own a la carte custom design, selecting the pieces that work for them.
Oh, so great. Yay. Inspireanddrive.com. We will send people there. That'll be in the show notes. And then it's also, it's running right below you right now. Magic of editing.
Yay.
Oh, Natasha, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I am Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygroover.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, have a great week, make your business simple, go download the Simple Business Method, and then just start doing something this week. Take some action, get going, and have a great week, everybody. We'll see you on the next Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.